Hi, everybody. We are excited about welcoming you to today's Parent Pivot podcast because
we're doing something different today.
Well, and also we got some new swag.
Oh, yeah, we have our new here.
Yeah.
Parent
if you're
listening,
you can't see this. So you got to go to the YouTube. But we've got some nifty green Parent Pivot podcast pullovers, and the reason we have those is because we are going to be doing a breakout session at the Grandparenting Summit at the end of this month. We're going to put that link in the show notes. Really doing that. If you can't make it to Birmingham, there's a lot of online things to watch, and we'll talk more about that. But what's the special thing we're doing on today's podcast?
So today, our social media manager, our daughter, Jamie Lynn, she is in the room with us, not on so you can't see her, but you will be able to hear her. She put us on TikTok.
Not that, but the TikTok that goes on your phone.
And in which one was it, Jamers? The one that had to do with if your children aren't talking to you.
Yes.
Okay. So she put a little blurb on there, and it went for us viral.
For us, it went viral. We're not talking millions, but we got quite a few.
But we got 10,000. That's a lot, I think.
Not just 11.
10 or 11,000?
Almost 11.
Almost 11,000. And a couple hundred comments. So we are going to have Jamie Lynn ask us some of the questions that some people posted or their stories.
And it's both young adults and their parents.
Yes.
So we're going to get both of them.
You're getting both sides.
And we don't know what's coming up, so we're doing this on the fly.
Yeah, this is an improv. So
it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, Jamie Lynn thinks these are fun because she's an actor, so she thinks improv is fun.
we think on our feet pretty well when we do our podcast. We just kind of
I prefer it that way. If somebody made me memorize lines and what I was supposed to say, I can't do that. So
all right,
I just have to be me.
We're ready for first one.
Okay, so I have filtered out because TikTok can be sometimes an angry place.
Sure.
And there's a lot of times when people go viral, it's because they disagree with you. But a lot of these people are just sharing their stories.
Okay.
So the first one I have is, why are these conversations sometimes assuming it's the parents being horrible? That's not every situation. Sometimes it's the child, the adult child.
Absolutely. I
guess the first thing is I got to understand what does horrible mean. I'm guessing there's a lot of disrespect, and mom and dad, you don't know anything, and so to me there isn't an assumption that it's always the parents doing something wrong, because our focus of our podcast is to help parents have healthier relationships with adult children. That's not putting the blame on them, but that's where we want to come around and help that.
Right. And so it's really, as much as it depends on you, the parent, that's why we're focusing in on them, because they are our audience. And so we are saying, if this is true in your situation, here are some things you can do. Now, I have said many times on the podcast, I realize this generation, for whatever reason, has been encouraged to be angry at their parents
and blame,
and to not talk and to blame. And so I'm sorry, what you can't see off camera is our daughter waving to her daughter through a window. And anyway, and
squirrel.
Squirrel, banana. Anyway, so that's why we are talking to the parents. We do not assume that, and we're sorry if we give off that air at all, because we do realize in many instances we are dealing with adult children that are angry and aren't handling it well.
What I would add too is we're not aware of what it is that is going on with your adult child, but the only thing we can control as the partner making the pivot is our responses.
Right.
So that's where we're trying to come along and saying, hey, yes, I understand you may have a rebellious adult child, son or daughter, and they're, acting entitled and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So we have different podcasts where we're talking about that, and we'd love to dive in specifically to that situation. But you can only control your response.
Right.
If we had you and your adult child in the room, we would try to kind of get to the issue and find out, well, what's going on here, and things. And we can, what we would want to say to the partner is, what can you own? what can you come along to that adult child and say, you know what, I look back on how we raised you, and we did the best we could with what we knew at the time. In fact, we even went through this in the last couple of days ourselves.
Yeah.
You were shedding some tears over our oldest being a month old, a couple months old. You can always look back and go, I should have done it better. But we always move forward with what we did and said, there's a lot of things we did right. So not knowing your situation, we would want to come along and say, what can you own to say to them, hey, if there's anything I've done that's offended you, I want to apologize for that. That will soften up the relationship so then you can move forward. That's our main goal here, but we do not assume that all parents and partners.
Each situation is different. Sometimes it could be the adult child being difficult, and sometimes it could be the parent.
Right.
Yes. And so definitely comes, and that's where you guys come in as counselors too.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next one. What if your adult child has never told you what to own? What if you have no idea what you did wrong? And they've just cut off and haven't told you what to own?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. All you can do is ask. I mean, I honestly, you can. One thing I would say, if you're a believer, and even if you're not, this is going to look different if you're not, but if you're a believer, one thing that we do believe in as believers is that the Lord will speak to us about things.
I believe that.
And so, if I were in that situation, I would be seeking the Lord and saying, Lord, please reveal to me what it is specifically, how I have hurt my child, what I have done, so that I then can own it. And if that child won't talk to you, then obviously that's going to come in the way of maybe a letter, a voicemail, an email, something like that. Again, if they've cut you off or they've blocked your number and your email and everything else, you're kind of at poo-poo creek. I mean, there's not a lot that you can do. And so all I can say is be prepared for the day when maybe they lift that, and that you have sought the Lord, you have asked him, help me see what I did and help me recall specific instances of where I may have blown it. If you're not a believer, I realize that's not what your method that you're going to take, but maybe sit down and just try to reflect, perhaps different periods of time. Like think of that child 0 to 5 and think of what life looked like, what you were doing. Perhaps like that 6 to 10.
Yeah. Where did things start getting off track that you see they started distancing from you, and just kind of have an open heart, maybe ask your spouse or someone else who's known the kids or things like that. Try to get some input, but keep a soft and tender heart. Cause like Julia said, you don't know when your adult child is going to pop up and say that. And I'm going through a book right now, about halfway through it. It's called Unoffendable by, I don't know, I'll put that in the show notes too. I don't remember the author. But with it comes the idea that no matter what my adult child shares, I do not want to react to that.
Yeah.
Because that's their perspective. We've gone through that with our kids, and even 10 years later found some things out about that. But you want to come around them and remember that's their perspective, and you want to be able to see through their lens. Even all 4 gospel writers didn't have the exact same thing. Some saw other things, but it's all truth because they all watched the same event unfold. So your kids will have different things, but if they won't tell you, not much you can do with that, but really try to go back in different stages, like Julia said, and see what you can come up with, and wait for that moment.
And wait for that moment. Be prepared for the day when you might have a chance to have that conversation. And does that answer the question?
That does answer the question.
Okay.
There are some other people who have talked about moving on when they're in a situation like that. The child won't tell, and there's no way of contacting them. How can you speak to the parent that needs the peace? Like the heartache. There are people on here saying, I'm going through this and it's killing me. My son is expecting his first child and he won't speak to me and stuff like that. What can you say to that? Yeah.
So where my heart goes right away is, when we've done this parenting job for however long, and now they've moved out of the house and I'm an empty nester, I've got to remind myself every day They don't belong to me. They belong to the Lord. That's really the only place I can find peace in saying, Father, they're yours. They're created in your image, just like I am, just like you are, Julia, just like our kids, like everybody is. And it's not something, it's not a one and done surrender. In fact, I think we're going to do a podcast on this, but I always mention it. It's like John Eldridge and his ministry, Wild at Heart, has a great app called the 1 Minute Pause. I'll put that in the show notes. We mentioned that a lot. But I have gone through that every day. And I even have a string of like 3 years that I went through it every day because I had so much anxiety, so much worry, so much concern, so much fear that I had to regulate my emotions. I had to regulate my thoughts. I had to get peace and say, Father, we birthed them. We did the best we could. Here they are. They're yours. At some point, that young father is going to realize what kind of legacy he's building. And he's going to look at his own and going, hey, God's going to always redeem. God's always in the process of restoring and redeeming, even when we don't think anything's happening. We look around and we're going, it's the same today. It's the same next year. It's the same 5 years. God, I guarantee you, God is working and redeeming. And that's what we have to rely on as partners, to saying they're in your hands. They're not mine. I've got to surrender them. You have anything to add?
So just hearing that, I got choked up. It's really hard for me to imagine. You're much more pragmatic. I am less pragmatic, so I feel that very emotional
She's an empath. She feels the pain.
tug.
Yes.
But I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. I do believe that part of moving on and letting go is what will bring them back. I think when your kids see you healthy, when they see your relationships healthy, when they see that you have moved on from them, you are giving them less power in their behavior. I'm not saying there won't be pain, because I honestly, I can't imagine. And, but I think that that is the step to moving forward, where you can actually, where you're giving the adult child, the freedom to come back to you because you are in a much healthier place. So I hope that that's clear.
Yeah. And none of us like pain and suffering. But as I tell the men I work with, my men's group, I go, that is a sign that God's at work in your life, because he's doing redeeming work in us as well. And that's the only thing we can really do, is let him continue his work.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We should have a bell. Ding. Next.
Ding, next. So this person had said, like, a little bit of a disagreement of, like, you don't chase after them.
Yeah.
You don't chase after them or beg anyone to love you.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Sounds very needy. Sounds very,
yes. That was one of the things that our daughter-in-law said in her situation that kind of hit home, was she needed space. And I think we did talk about that in a previous episode.
And sometimes space is necessary.
Space is good.
It is.
I actually
It is.
Googled about adult children and parents who aren't talking to each other. And it says about 95% of them end up resolving themselves. Okay. But it can take up to 4 to 5 years. Yeah. So kind of keep that in mind. That's just what Google says when you type it in there. It's
AI.
It's not what we're saying. So there's good hope there. And yeah, that's.
But I do think that idea of space is absolutely necessary. Again, even what I was just saying, it gives them the freedom to come back to you when you are, when you appear that you cannot be happy without your child's love.
Yeah.
Number one, you're giving them all the power over
Yep.
yourself.
I'm not good if you're not good
right.
toward me.
And that's very codependent.
Yep.
Classic codependency. Yep. And so your child may very well be looking at you to look healthier. And it's the same answer I gave before. I think it's a lot of the same things, but space may definitely be needed. When we talk about having conversations, I'm assuming that you are still having some sort of conversation where then you can own it, where you can tell them, I'm very sorry, and things like that. Um, I'm not talking about chasing them down and beating their door down and demanding that they talk to you.
Well, and for a recovering pleaser who used to be in that realm years ago, and I've gotten better, what that conveys to the person is, like you said, you've got all the power. What that also communicates to them is they don't really respect me because I'm not standing up for who I am.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying standing up and pounding your fist and going, you're not going to get away with that or whatever. I'm talking about setting boundaries and being able to walk away and going, hey, this. Okay, can't make it. Okay, great. And you back up and they start to realize, oh, they're not chasing after me. I have to be okay no matter what their decision and response is. And yes. I think they will pick up on that if you're always trying to do things to get their attention because you're the one that needs to take care of this pain inside yourself, mm-hmm. They're picking up on that. So take care of you first.
Yeah.
Ding. Ding. Okay, next is, what do you suggest for parents who are estranged due to the other parent interfering in the relationship and causing parental alienation? Does that make sense?
So I'm assuming then the parents are divorced.
It doesn't say, but
okay.
It's not referring to in-laws?
I think it's like a parent duo.
Okay.
Let's say the dad has a very difficult relationship with a son.
Okay.
And so mom's just in the middle. This is just hypothetical.
Yeah.
So this person's asking, what do you suggest if there's a difficult parent that's causing it?
Gotcha. The other one's not involved in it.
Yeah, they're not involved. They're not the ones that hurt the adult child. So they're caught in the middle. Can you speak to that?
I think part of what needs to happen is the parent who's being alienated, not because of what they did, but because of their, because you're a screw up. I get punished.
Oh, you're saying hypothetical. Okay, gotcha. I'm a screw up. When did that happen?
No, that's what I'm hearing. I hope that question was asked the way they meant it. So, it's up to me to go to my adult child and have a conversation and be able to say, you know what, just because you don't like your dad doesn't mean that I should be punished. Again, it's you sticking up for yourself. I'm guessing that if you are feeling alienated, that you might be a bit of a pleaser, like you were talking about before, and you aren't taking that situation, the bull by the horns, so to speak. So get in there, have a conversation with your adult child, give them the what for, so to speak, in the sense of, hey, this isn't fair for me. I want a relationship with you. You can be mad at dad all you want, but I want a relationship with you. What do I need to do? Or, how can we make that happen together?
And I want to add this because I'm also foreseeing between the couple, if you are doing that and having a good relationship with the adult child, and I'm not, I'm going to be pissed at you. Okay. So I want to say to the wife, this is where you got to stand up to hubby, and say, you know what? That's your issue. You need to get and go see a counselor. You've got too much, whatever it could be, pride, arrogance, you name it. You're the one that's fractured this relationship. I'm mom. I'm going to have a relationship. Grow up, buddy. And if I'm sorry, I'm just being really direct here because we men have a hard time with this. And you know what? I have a men's group. It's all about humility. It's all about understanding who we are. And our parents didn't parent us 100% perfect, and we haven't done it either. But doggone it, grow up and put it in your boxer shorts and let's go, men. And here, I'll give you my phone number and email address, and you send your husband to me, and I'll give him the what for. Ding.
Well, and this was a hypothetical. I don't know if this person is the mom or the dad, but we just did it on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little...
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. Again, it's up to me to go to my spouse and say, you know what? Your relationship with your child is your relationship. My relationship with my child is my relationship, and I'm going to maintain my relationship. It's up to you to fix your relationship. Yeah.
Okay, here's just like a quick short one. This person said, and I just think it's someone who agrees with you. You own what you've done wrong. Apologize. Give them space. Reach out again. there's no response to either attempt, let them go, and hopefully they will reach out at some point.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I feel like, your best case scenario you guys are talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and always saying, even if it's the last thing you ever say to them,
I love you.
I love you, and I'm always here when you're ready to talk.
Yeah. And I will always love you for who you are. You're my son, you're my daughter, and I own all this stuff. And yeah, it's not for what you do. I love you no matter what, period. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, next up.
Ding.
Wow, a lot of people have said, what if you have no idea what you've done? What if you don't know why? All that kind of stuff. There's multiple ones of those.
Yeah. And I've had friends like that. They really don't understand, and they've apologized, they've owned things, they've changed the way they operate, all of those things. But that's where you've got to give them the space, and again, let them know, I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I want a relationship with you, and I'm going to give you all the space in the world to, until hopefully you're ready.
Yeah. And what I'm imagining here, I could be wrong, but what I'm just hearing is this may be that season where they've just left the nest and they've got to fly out to all these different trees and see what life's like everywhere else. So I'm guessing this could be, 20s into 30s. And as they start to get settled into their families and things like that, they start to mature. And again, I'll go back to previously what we said. God will continue to redeem and restore whether we feel it or see it or not. That is sorry, am I making too much noise? I'm half Italian. I've got to use my hands.
Well, I use my hands too.
Okay, so this one is another hard story. So, Mom, sorry if you end up crying.
I'll try to hold it together for the two of us.
This one says, what do you do when their significant other, so the adult child's significant other, does not like the family after everyone seeing his toxicity? So he gave her an ultimatum, him or the family, and she chose him.
Gosh.
Wow.
So again, if you are a believer, the Bible says leave and cleave. That I would say that child did the right thing in that they put their spouse first. That becomes the primary relationship. I hope that you as parents can encourage your child in that relationship. Pray for them. Hopefully it's a healthy one. Sounds like it's not the healthiest. But again, let your daughter know, I am here if you ever need me. Because chances are, in a situation like that, hopefully they work things out and they grow and they figure out their relationship. But chances are, honestly, she'll be back because it sounds like an unhealthy relationship. I don't know when. It could be 10 years from now. It could be 20 years from now. I don't know. But encourage her in her relationship and encourage her to do the right thing, but also give her the freedom to come home if there's abuse happening or anything like that.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is, it sounds like, okay, I'm watching my child, go off the cliff and they have to drive off the cliff and land and get hurt and end up in the hospital and go through pain and whatever. And you just want to be able to say, sweetie, I am so sorry. I love you for who you are. There's no, I told you so. We all know he was horrible, whatever. It's like we learn and grow in our faith when we face all these things and learn them from experience. And it's hard to watch as a parent or partner. And what I would say is like Julia said, continue to be there. How can we love them? How can we love her and keep those doors open in relationship, keep our mouths shut and the welcome mat out. And again, when things, and I would even say if they end up getting married and
I think they are married. Do you get that impression, Jamie?
It says significant.
So if they end up getting married and having kids and you've got some type of relationship, you might pose to her, what do your girlfriends say? What do other people say? Let her look elsewhere because the common denominator is going to keep coming back to the common denominator.
Yeah,
right?
I was thinking that they were married, so that changes how I would, what I would
she's a
say.
significant other. So they're not married yet.
Because if they're not married yet, then I wouldn't be coming after her and telling her how awful this person was. That's not going to pan out well for you at all. What I would be doing is continue to invite him into your family, continue to get to know him, find a way to get to know him, appreciate who he is, all of those things. Let's look at it from a flip side. Let's say he's right. Let's say your family is toxic in how they operate, and he's actually correct in saying, you know what, I can't live with the way your family operates. So this is where you may need to look at yourself and say, are we a toxic family? Do we operate in a way that isn't healthy? Have we demanded things of our daughter that maybe we shouldn't demand? Maybe we need to take a step back and look at ourselves and be honest with ourselves about, is there something in the way that we're operating that is not healthy?
And to me, the word toxic sounds very extreme. I would use maybe the word dysfunctional, because we can be an emotionally enmeshed family.
Mm-hmm.
Every family's got some level of dysfunction. Yeah. We all have to step back and go, what is it that's going on with our family? And we have to learn and be aware of it and grow from it. So you bring up a good point. Just because someone says that doesn't mean they're the bad guy. Step back and going, what can we own from that? And where can we make that relationship better?
And it's hard for us being on this end of it because we really don't know the truth.
No.
Well, and it sounds like this family has called out his toxicity.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what made him give her the ultimatum.
Gotcha.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's a significant, as a boyfriend of a daughter, and the family has said he's toxic to her, and he doesn't like that. So
yeah. And they're just going to have to give her the space to figure that out.
And maybe,
it may be a bad situation, but
she's
pray that she figures it out.
Yeah, she's got to see it for herself, but for her to make a choice, depending on how old she is, I don't know if she's in her teens or early 20s or whatever. That's what we're raising responsible adult children to do. She's got to live with her choices and hopefully pray that she sees it. Maybe offer up counseling for them to get together on their relationship. If she sees it, I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot there. There are a lot of questions I have, but I will say I have sat with a lot of people in my office who have very toxic in-laws. Sometimes it shocks me of how absolutely toxic people can be and how blind, and it's usually the mother-in-law, I hate to say, but how toxic they can be toward their in-law child.
Well, and the hard part for us is we don't understand the dynamics of what this toxic means. Right, we're just shooting from the hip going, okay, well, if it means this or that, then this is what we do and whatever.
We're guessing.
So even as we're kind of hovering like a drone around trying to land this thing, we're not landing on a target. So if we had more information, we'd be more helpful.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys are open to that.
Yes, we are.
These people want to talk about that.
Yes. So to get a hold of us, anything like that, just, instant messages on, do we have an instant message on TikTok? Okay. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and our podcast is parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com. We're also offering to our podcast listeners and TikTok viewers that normally if you needed help with relationships, it costs a pretty penny. You got to find the right person. You don't know if you're connected to them or not, and you just don't know what's going to work. And you're spending upwards of $150 an hour or 50 minutes. I mean, up to $200. So
up to $275.
$275, and you're like, we don't even know what we're going to get. So if you feel comfortable with us, we want to bring that price down because we're both Georgia certified pastoral counselors. Mm-hmm. We want to bring that down to all of our podcast listeners. We feel that it takes at least 3 sessions to be able to get to know your situation. One is to just understand who you are, what your situation is. The second session is more to then kind of dive into the dynamics of that. And then the third session would be not necessarily in back-to-back weeks with the first 2, but it could be anytime. To just kind of follow up. Hey, how did that go there? That would be the minimum.
Yeah.
And we want to offer
very minimum. Yeah.
We would want to offer out those 3 sessions at half the cost, which would be $299. Yeah. Now, every session after that would be at $100 as opposed to, $150, $200, $275. So we're trying to bring it to more affordable, relational, Christian-based, pivoting from parent to partner, we want to help you with those relationships, things like you're hearing right now. You get a hold of us through all those social media platforms, and Jamie Lynn will shoot them to us, or email us at parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
That's our commercial right in the middle of our podcast.
All right, let's do like 3 more.
Okay.
This one is from an adult child. She says, I want to talk to my mom, but she doesn't want to, I guess. Why I have to try to be the best daughter to her if she doesn't want if she's not a good mom to me. I cut her from my life even though I don't want to.
Well, my question to her, if she were sitting in front of me, I ask her, did you actually explain that to your mom? Because, and it sounds like her mom may not be open to hearing that, but she can still say it. And you can say it in a kind way. You can say, you know what, Mom, I do want a relationship with you, but I keep hitting a wall. It seems very unhealthy. And because of that, I'm going to stop talking to you. This is what I'd like to see, maybe being specific about what you'd like to see. I'd really love to see you in counseling and dealing with your own stuff because it seems to come out on me. Or, I'm guessing her mom has been hurt in some way
Sounds
in
like
her
they're both
life.
hurt.
Yeah.
Hurt people.
Yeah. And I would say to her, get your own help, because when you have a family of your own, chances are good it might come out on your child, which you don't want to do.
You don't want to repeat what happened.
Yeah, those are kind of a couple of things.
Have a soft heart. It's like I'm sitting in space going, man, I would want relationship with my father or my mother, but because of, in fact, I've had to, here, I'll share this right now just real quick. I had to cut off relationship with my dad in my 50s for 2 years because there was so much hurt that had built up over 55 years that I had what I call it the father eclipse. My dad's voice was in my head. I couldn't understand who God was, and I had to cut him off. But I knew in my heart God was going to redeem that relationship, and he certainly did. It took 2 or 3 years. Are there still things that he does that he relentlessly does that he says or points me to? Yes, but I've done the work to have grace and love toward him and look at him for how God sees him and not for the hurt that he caused me. So I'm trying to work on me to be there for him because he can't give me what I need, but I still want to be a good son while he's still here on earth and love him well.
And that comes also with compassion because your dad has his own story. He had his own parents and how they dealt with things. And that helped create how he dealt with things. And that didn't jive with you.
Right.
So
same thing's probably happened with your mom.
Yeah.
She's raised by folks. This is how she learned to parent. It's injured you. The best thing you can do is to keep being honest, when I say protect your heart, there's forgiving people and there's trusting people. You can forgive somebody, but that doesn't mean you're going to go back into the kitchen where it's hot and put your hand on top of the stove again.
Right.
Trust takes time to rebuild, but take care of your own heart like you're doing. Keep it soft. Keep praying for her heart to be softer. Hopefully the father is working. Not hopefully he's working. He always is working. And you can come to a point later on. But like you said, be intentional to say, this is what I want. See what the responses are. But also know that, expect that there could be some other hurt coming back. There's nothing you can do if the parent doesn't want to look at themselves and take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And then then you have to move on.
Can you speak into, there's a lot of people talking about at some point you do have to give a boundary. So in both situations, for a parent or an adult child, there can be a toxic adult child, there can be a toxic parent or whatever, and the other person eventually has to get to a point where they do have to cut ties and put up a boundary. Can you speak into that, Matthew 18, the process of it?
Yeah, so I go back to somebody that Steve used to know, and I haven't been in touch with him, but I remember him talking about he had his own therapy and realized how toxic his mother was, and basically told her, Mom, when you do this, this is what I'm going to do. And his boundary was, when you do this thing, which she was a complainer. She would put him down. She was all around negative. And he just said, when you do this, Mom, I am going to go for a period of time without talking to you, because I have to then process it. I have to heal from it. And that is not the relationship I want with you. So this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're basically giving them a decision to make.
Right.
Here's my ground. It comes back to my baseball umpiring. As long as if the manager kept arguing the call and whatever, it's like we've reached a point where we're on your one side, I'm on the other, and I would just say to him, hey, if you continue to argue this call, you will leave me no choice but to eject you from this game. So therefore, I'm putting it on him. If he walked back to the dugout and said another word, he made the decision, and I ejected him. If he walked back to the dugout, kept his mouth shut, he stayed in the game.
Right. So not knowing the specific instance or, situation, it's hard to say what a boundary should look like all the time. I want to put this caveat in here because our society uses boundaries sometimes in very unhealthy ways.
Yes.
They are overly used as an excuse to punish people. A boundary is not meant to punish somebody. A boundary is meant to say, hey, this doesn't work for me and I'm having a hard time with it. It has to involve you being honest about your own feelings. And it doesn't mean I get to be a petulant child that you hurt my feelings, so I'm taking my marbles and going home.
Right. You did this wrong and you're not doing it the way I want you to, so you're wrong and whatever. That's not what we're talking about here.
It has to do with when there is a toxicity there. It doesn't mean just because you don't like how your parents do something that you would cut them off. That's ridiculous. It honestly is ridiculous. Or to go back a couple months here, how somebody votes is not a reason for a boundary to cut your family off. I'm sorry, that's lunacy. So we should all be able to believe however we believe and still have relationship. And if you're incapable of having relationship with someone because they believe differently, then that is on you.
Right.
So I'm going to be very upfront about that. I'm going to be harsh about it because I see a lot of this and it isn't healthy. If you've convinced yourself that you're being healthy, you're not. You are just avoiding uncomfortableness. Yeah. And we all have uncomfortableness. We all have anxiety. We all have difficult things in our life. And if you are of the mindset that things shouldn't be difficult and it's somebody else's fault that things are difficult, you need to look at you. So I have to put that caveat in there. But again, I think boundaries are specific to situations.
Well, and I also want to be careful here. We've talked a lot about this in the podcast. I hope this is not being communicated via text. Yeah. Because a lot of conversations are imploding and exploding without looking the person in the eye, seeing them, talking to them. I also want to, as I was listening to you say all that, sweetie, is whatever might be causing the potential boundary to be put in place. Is it criticism? Is it being negative? Is it all these negative things? And if so, if someone's like always critical, okay, I can understand. Hey, mom, dad, if you're going to do that, this is our response. But at the same time, if a partner is communicating truth in love and you don't like it, I don't think that's necessary, the immediate call to put up a boundary.
Right.
You want to step back. In fact, I would not put boundaries in place in the moment that the clash, quote unquote, is happening. Okay, take a time out, sleep on it, come back. I mean, how many times do we watch a comedy episode in half hour? They're going like this, and by the end of the show, oh, I love you, everything's great. It's like we realized that we just snapped. Things went wrong. I'm so sorry. I've been weighed down with work and stress and da-da-da-da. That's not what I want to be. And there's makeup. Always work towards reconciliation. Yeah. If you've got repeated years of the same thing going on as you were a teenager, now you're getting adulthood and nothing's changing, or vice versa, parent to adult. Okay, I can start to see that. Okay, but do not be quick to push that button that says, zzz, up goes the boundary.
Yeah.
Okay. You're working towards reconciliation. You're working towards understanding. You're working towards what's it look like to be on the other side of me? What does it look like to be in their shoes looking back at this? Now, if they're still completely narcissistic and all about them, whatever, I get it. And bounce it off of other people before you enact it. If you're married, talk to a spouse, you've got a close friend, whatever, but never put a boundary in place just because you're reacting and upright your hurt and your anger. That's you're causing fractured relationships for a much longer time.
Yes. And Jamie Lynn brought up Matthew 18.
Oh, yes.
So just to cover that, basically what Matthew 18 says is go to the person, tell them that you're having a difficult time with their behavior or what happened, or
one-on-one,
or a lifetime of behavior. I don't know. But you go to that person first.
In love and compassion and mercy.
Right. If they reject it, then you bring in someone else to have the conversation as well, to be a mediator. So maybe you go to a pastor or something like that. I would also say seek out counsel for yourself. Make sure, like Steve said, that you don't have blind spots of yourself, that you're finding out, maybe it's difficult being on the other side of you, and that's why this person behaves that way. So again, it's being open to yourself as well and changing yourself as well.
Can you speak into someone who has been trying and trying and trying, very toxic relationship with a parent, and is not brave enough to make the boundary and to cut ties? Like, that is actually the next step that needs to happen.
So that needs to happen. It just can't hit the button.
Yeah.
You can't make someone be brave.
Yeah.
I mean, that honestly, I would love to have a conversation with that person to find out their fears. I'm kind of guessing that this is a third party that's asking about somebody that they know, or is it the actual person?
We don't know. It's on
I think it's
TikTok.
It sounds like it's the actual person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do I come up?
You found, you were on their FYP, and they know they need to do it, and they haven't done it yet. What do you say there?
I would say you've got to come to grips with your fears. What is the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What is the biggest fear with that? Why do you need that relationship? Is there some codependency there on your part where I need their approval?
There can be so much dominance from that parent to the adult child that they're just fearful of them. The authority is way too strong, and that's not how God sees you. So I would pray that the Holy Spirit gives you the strength to be able to stand up in His Spirit to say, hey, the evil one can get a hold of us too, when we're living out of our normal self and hurting our kids. And that can be very scary, especially if it's happened all through childhood and your lifehood. Now it's kind of like, I'm done with this, but I just don't know if I can stand up to Goliath.
Yeah.
Maybe really pray, hey, Father, how do I be a David and take down Goliath in a loving way that honors you?
And I would ask the question, did you try to set a boundary? Did you actually have a conversation with that parent and tell them, like, I'm going to have to cut things off with you if this can't change? Yeah.
Can you speak into when the adult child is demanding apologies? Or speak to the adult child that's not getting the apology? Because there are lots of relationships where you're never going to get an apology. How can you still choose relationship and put up a boundary?
Okay. You can't extract an apology, because what you're basically saying is, I'm right, you're wrong, you owe me this, and until you do this, this isn't resolved.
And that's not right.
And that is, it's just, I mean, how would you feel if you were in that spot, someone's trying to extract an apology from you? If anything, it makes the hair stand in the back of my head going, I didn't do anything wrong. Next thing you know, you're two people that are just going separate ways. So an apology, even if someone said it, is it going to be sincere? Did they really mean it? Did it come from your heart? So please don't even ever try to extract an apology. It's just never going to work. It's never going to reunite unification.
Yeah, it's like you've got your 3-year-old and 5-year-old, and you're saying, apologize.
He took my ball, and she did that. He's supposed to say sorry, and we didn't say sorry. And
it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. I think what they're really wanting is not so much the apology, but an acknowledgement that what that person did was hurtful.
On a lot of this stuff, this one in particular is about stuff in the past.
Right.
So you could be dealing with a 25-year-old, but they're wanting an apology for when they were 5.
Right. And honestly, I've seen this. I've had this in my office recently, actually, where a parent is apologizing and saying sorry, but it's not enough for that kid because they're not feeling completely understood. Like, do you understand the depth of the pain that this caused me? And that's, excuse me, my voice. That is something we all desire. And I think what we really want is to see someone hurt so much because they hurt us.
Well, yeah.
Or in pain,
right.
remorseful,
right.
crying tears.
So
yeah.
I'm gonna
equal that pain.
I'm gonna be a little pragmatic here. If you're a believer that's asked this question, I'm gonna point you back to 1 Corinthians 13. Okay, I'm gonna say love does not keep a record of wrong. I've even been such a detailed person. I'm like, okay, every time this happens, I want to be able to say, on this date you did this and this and this and this. I want to keep a list just so they could know that they keep doing this over and over and over again. And then I keep getting reminded by the Holy Spirit, Steve, you need to go back and read 1 Corinthians 13. Love keeps no record of wrong. Okay? Number 1. Number 2, get a copy of the book Unoffendable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but everybody in this world is going to offend me, from cutting me off to forgetting to buy my deodorant on time to whatever it could be. And it's like, my gosh, they always do it. The problem is with me. I have the critical heart if I'm trying to keep account of everybody else. When God says, if you're going to do that to everybody else, guess what I do to you? I do the exact same thing to you. I remember all the things where you stepped out of line, and I don't forgive those. So,
God doesn't say that.
Yes, he does in his book. We how many times should I forgive you? It doesn't matter how many times. You just automatically forgive. You always forgive because that's what he wants us to be.
Because he always forgives us.
He always forgives us. If you want his forgiveness, we have to forgive others for every little thing, from a U-turn in front of me to the bigger things, because you just cannot demand apologies. And you can't hold people to their feet to the fire to do it. You're being too condemning. And I'm sorry if this is speaking the truth in love. You know, go check out 1 Corinthians 13. Go look for that. Send me an email message and tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, they'll tell you on TikTok.
Parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com.
You guys have had quite a few soapboxes in this. Okay. You can't reconcile unless they're willing to meet you halfway. You can only do your part.
Yeah.
True.
I think that pretty much says it. You are responsible for your own responses.
Okay. There's still a lot of comments because there's, over 200 now.
Woo-hoo.
And so
we'll do the other rest on another podcast.
Yeah, maybe. But if you guys want to wrap up and speak to all the pain that people are having, both as adult children being cut off and both as parents of adult children being cut off.
So what I want to say to that is relationships are messy.
Yes.
We are human. We get hurt. We hurt others. If you have convinced yourself that you don't hurt others at all, you're wrong, because we are human. We do. So take ownership of where you hurt others and realize and have grace for others hurting you. People don't wake up. Steve says this all the time. I don't wake up thinking about how I'm going to hurt somebody. Not many people think that way. If you are somebody that thinks that way, go get some help.
Maybe they're in prison already.
But nevertheless, most of us do not wake up thinking, I'm going to purposely hurt people today. So
especially we're talking about in a family. We don't wake up saying, I'm going to hurt my child today. What can I think about to do?
And just give grace. I don't know what else to say. Forgiveness is a process. It continues. It's not a one and done. So if you need to forgive someone for particularly if you are, and we're all children, because even you adults or you parents of the adult children, you were still a child of another parent. And in that parent most likely hurt you, and that is, you are continuing the generational issues.
That's what needs to be broken. I need to break that type of thinking. We have old paradigms of thinking, and when you become a believer, the Holy Spirit wants to come in and change all that stuff.
Yeah.
So even in my 60s, I still find myself being triggered by old paradigms of thinking. I have to stop. Again, the pause button. What's going on right here? Is that who I want to be? Is that who I am now? No. That's my normal self. Who am I? My true identity. Who do I want to be, and who am I? That's different thinking that the Holy Spirit's in control here.
Yeah.
So we flip, and we want to. This is how the culture leads. This is how humanity leads. This is how we're taught to lead. We spent all these years growing up, and we built these walls of protection around us. And by golly, you can't treat me like that. I'm going to put up boundaries. I'm going to do this and that, whatever. And we're keeping score on apologies and you name it. And it's like, no, that is old paradigms of thinking that need to be crushed. So, again, I'm only saying this because I'm still doing the hard work myself of having to stop and going, Father, show me my true identity. Show me how I should love this person. I sometimes get in tiffs with her and stuff, and going, Father, this woman you gave me is driving me nuts. I do not know how to love her right now. And he always shows me how to love her, and we always make up.
I'm very lovable.
She is.
Right?
It's always the little things.
Jamie Lynn?
It's always the little things. It's never the big stuff. It's always the little things. Why did you move my thing? Because I want it over here.
If people from TikTok
TikTok
come to this video / podcast to listen,
yes,
and they want to chat with you guys,
yeah,
remember they can reach out.
Yes,
absolutely.
Reach out.
Instagram,
yep, TikTok.
And just an overall summary, every situation is different.
Mm-hmm,
so if
exactly.
a part of this podcast pissed you off, it might not be a part of your situation.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to know the ins and outs of the relationship and dynamics and stuff. So
we can't land a drone when we don't know where we're landing it.
Don't be offended. We're
right.
speaking to specific situations.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we love you.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And we'll be back next Tuesday with some more content on the Parent Pivot podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.